the direction. If you want to reverse it, I love reverses. I only love reverses in football when they go for a touchdown down the sidelines. But this way, reversing it, is going to kill the city going backwards. We're on the right path. And I'm staying on that right path. And to connect communities, we must, and I'm going to repeat this, must build underground transit. Subways. On Shepherd out to Scarborough and Finch. And my subway plan is going to be coming out next week. Very clear. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes, I will invest now. We need to give hope to the community. Things are not going well. We know there are more kids living in poverty, meaning they're going to bed hungry within the last 4 years because there's a failed leadership at City Hall. More kids are in fact living in poverty now than 4 years ago. There's higher percentage of young people not being able to find a job. There is a crisis. That's why we need to invest. That's why we need to create jobs. And let me tell you about TCHC. I represented an area where there's Alexander Park, and I was for a year or two on the board of TCHC, where we started the retrofitting, the renewal of Don Mount and then Regent Park. We can do a whole lot together by renewing the existing stock, by giving the power to the community, like I did working with Alexander Park, where people took control of their building and became a cooperative. And that's the best way to renew TCHC, that those people living there, the residents themselves, have the right and the power to manage their housing stock. That is how we can renew TCHC. And as to creating support, we need a lot more after-school programs, as I said before, and we can make the capital budget work for us by creating jobs for young people. If you look at Regent Park, while we were redeveloping the Regent Park area, we created 500 jobs. And that was through asking the company that are doing business to the city to sign a community benefits agreement. Yes, and that creates jobs for the city. And there's a lot we can do together, but we must make a promise to our children that we are going to invest, whether it's childcare, after-school programs, all of those social services where the spending have declined in the last 4 years. We need to reverse the direction, make a complete change, and move forward to create a better future for our children.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, looking out at this crowd, it's very similar to the crowd that we debated in front of at the Scarborough Gospel Temple. And the question came up very similar to the question here. When are we going to fix community housing? And you know, we heard the same answer from Mr. Ford. And I had to start my remarks as, well, if it's been so successful over the last 4 years, why do people keep asking and putting it on their list of top priorities that it's a problem? And the answer is it's not being addressed. It's still a very critical problem. I want to also go back. I was Mayor Miller's budget chair. I'm proud of those budgets. I'm proud of the investment that we put in the public. And I'll tell you, the funds that we put in reserve funds, such as to do whatever funds so we can support for state of good repair, those were the ones that went into the tax decrease. We need to put those money into the public, and what we need is we need a firm plan and to stand up for ourselves with respect to all of these things that you're asking about: social assistance, child care, and seniors programs. What nobody is speaking of is that the download that came from, yes, Premier Wynne and her Finance Minister, Mr. Sousa, They downloaded $40 million a year, 40 million 2 years ago, 40 million this year, and 40 million next year. Those funds are coming directly from the city programs for all of these vital services that we're looking for. What you need for a mayor is somebody who's actually willing to stand up to the Premier to say that's wrong, because it's coming from the pockets of our most vulnerable. I also want to talk to you a little bit about my program, because I'm the only one to have raised the issue of homelessness, of affordable housing, and social housing, and including the state of good repair, because there's stuff that we can do here and now to make it work. You know, we have this social housing portfolio inside the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. Well, frankly, ladies and gentlemen, speaking so many people, we need that portfolio not to be treated as a landlord and tenants, but as partners in housing. We need a decentralization so it focuses on communities, and communities have a greater say. Communities have an ability to invest their sweat equity into making their housing better and to making housing more responsive. What we need to do also is to invest in our communities, and we can do it. Oops. Fire alarm? Are you calling for the fire department? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons that I think, I've used the expression that Mayor Ford is out of gas, and sometimes you just run out of gas. It just happens. It happens in your car and it happens to people. Is because he made a presentation of the kind you just heard a couple of minutes ago on that. And he said to you, for example, I want to just focus on a couple of numbers. He said to you there have been 59,000 jobs created during his term in office. And you know, that's 59,000 to the good. But here's the problem. Just remember this other number. The number of young people between the ages of 16 and 24 who are not in school, not working, and not in a training program today in Toronto, 83,000. So when Mayor Ford declares things booming and talks about the number of cranes in the sky and says all is well, I'd say, I don't think so. And I'd say this is at the end of 4 years during which you've been mayor, where we actually heard very little from Mayor Ford about creating jobs for young people or for anybody else in the city. Let's talk about a second number. And David made this one, but I'll make it again because it's worth it. If such a great job has been done repairing Toronto community housing, which is a moral issue, as I think Olivia said, I think the mayor himself said it was appalling for us to ask our fellow citizens to live in that housing that we provide for those who are in need of a bit of a hand up. And you know what? He's right about that. Except that the number at the end of his term, 4 years as mayor, he said, I'm using his number, $876 million. $876 million. So, and then thirdly, the question focused on investment in social programs as well, other kinds of investments. And I would say the first place for a mayor, and I can assure you this man, John Tory as mayor, is not going to do what Rob Ford did, which is to vote repeatedly against the programs, not necessarily even just increases in those programs, but there are restrictions in those programs. Working to improve outcomes for vulnerable, marginalized, and high-risk communities. Voted against them. There's a record of votes against those kind of programs. I repeat what I said in my opening statement. The investments we make through those programs, and you do have to be careful in budgeting, and you have to look, I believe, much more at the outcomes of those programs and find the ones that are successful and work well. And by the way, as well, we talked yesterday about a poverty reduction strategy for the city, which we all signed on to. But well, no, Rob signed it earlier. He did. He wasn't at the meeting, but he signed earlier. But we have to set specific targets as part of that, and I think that should include some targets for some of the very unique challenges facing African Canadian young people and other people, like the dropout rate and like unemployment, because then we'll focus on those targets and we will focus specific measures on achieving those targets. And then finally, I just want to say that I think, again, I mentioned this as well in my opening statement, it's only going to happen as a result of partnerships with and between and among councillors, and you need a mayor that's going to get along with the city council. Between the other governments, David mentioned that the provincial government is withdrawing from some of these areas. We need to have people who can get results from them and from the government in Ottawa. And partnerships with the private sector, because the renewal of neighborhoods beyond Regent Park has to be a repetition of what we've seen in Regent Park, where a private sector company stepped up with the government and with nonprofit agencies and made it happen. And we have to have that happen over and over and over again across the city.
And we're out of time, please.
Thank you for sparing me the bell, Mr. Tory. Well, haven't heard a whole lot
this yet. The question for those in the stands who may want to know what we're talking about. The question was, will you allow the continued decline in social and family service spending? Will I keep it steady or increase spending in these areas? Whatever your decision, how do you envision it impacting the African Canadian community? I really haven't heard an answer yet. And this is the problem. We are hearing things that we are sensitive to, and we are getting excited because we know the pain. We know the struggle, and it feels good to know that someone else knows. But when we really need traction, when we really need results, is after the election, where we do not hold our elected officials accountable. Now, my answer specifically to the question is we have to, of course, continue increasing spending. But here's the problem. The problem is our backlog of work that needs to be done. It's not just in housing. I have statistics here. It shows that even our infrastructure of our city is close to $2 billion in backlog of work. Where are we going to find the money to get it done? Until anyone is talking about how are we going to address it and generate money to find these repairs so that we can fix the deplorable conditions that my people live in, then we will not have results, and all you have is rhetoric. So I want you to understand something. We need programs for those who live in these buildings, who have small businesses that can help repair. Let them bid for some of these jobs. Let's get them working on the place they live so they can have some ownership, so they can defend their community and rise up and build a special place that they can call home because their own hands built it. I heard the word sweat equity, Mr. Soknacki, and that is one of my favorite words. That's how I've gotten this far. And you know what? That's something that we are born with. And you know what? If we can tap into that, then the city can bridge the gap between all of our backlogs and the need to generate revenue. So I believe the poor people, those who are struggling and suffering and deal with poverty every day and have to ride transit and rely on transit, they need to have their voice here at this table here. And I am happy to be that voice. Thank you.
Can we be real here? Imitation is flattering, but there's nothing like the real thing. Firsthand, anybody who lives in Toronto community housing knows what their experience is there. They're excluded from the conversation. Sure, surveys are filled out, meetings are held, but where is the spending going? I agree with a lot of things that Dewitt Lee said. I agree with some of the things that Mr. Soknacki also said. But I don't agree with increasing spending. I want to focus on where the spending is actually going. And I also want to change the culture of thinking within Toronto community housing and the City of Toronto and how we operate as a city for the people. I think what we do is say they and us. If we're a city of people, isn't that the motto of the city? Diversity is our strength. But yet we exclude people in different ways. We marginalize people in ongoing systemic ways. If the same people who have been in government all this time, and I'm talking about various levels of government, the first three at the table, and no offense to you, thank you for what you've done for us, but the reality is the same old is still the same old. Are you willing to vote for the same old, to get the same old? It is time now that we look at the issues specific to this question surrounding Toronto community housing and recognize that we should stop saying they and include them in the conversation, meaning that they are part of the we. I don't believe in increasing spending. I believe in assessing the spending and putting it as the responsibility should be as the City of Toronto as being the largest landlord, in fact, in Canada, but specific to Toronto, to look at the responsibilities of a landlord and to uphold those responsibilities. So that's my answer for that. I have a few more minutes. So what I will say with regards to affordable housing, affordable is a relative term. So keep those things in mind when you go to vote. That are you, depending on what bracket you're in, are you able to right now afford to live in the city of Toronto? Exactly. So affordable is a relative term. Don't set off your mind and think affordable is for them.
Thank
it's
you,
for all
we're
of
out of
us.
time.
And thank you.
Now the 30 seconds I was talking about, it actually does exist, okay? So for the next set of questions relating to race, carding, and policing issues, we'll give the candidates 2 minutes to answer the question and a 30-second rebuttal for the next. In July this year, it was reported in the media that since July 2013, carding in Toronto dropped by 75%. After the July 13 drop in carding numbers, the proportion of contact cards for people of black skin rose to 27.4%. That is 3.4 times the proportion of Toronto's black population, which stands at 8.1%. Do you feel that carding as a practice should be abolished? Do you feel that it should be permitted but regulated in a way that is under the Toronto Policing Services Board?
So I understood from the the event organizer that it starts at this end and goes back that way?
Yes, I wasn't finished yet.
No, I just wanted to be clear.
No
Thank
problem.
you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
I just want to clarify something, Madam Moderator. You said 2 minutes each and then 30
Okay,
seconds.
rebuttal from each candidate.
30 seconds?
Do you want more time?
No, I'm good. It's just, can we have be quick, that's all.
30 seconds. You can get a lot of punches in 30 seconds. Okay. So do you feel that carding as a practice should be abolished, or do you feel that it should be permitted but regulated? We'll start on the other side of the room now.
With ONNE Renée.
Yes, I wasn't finished again. Go ahead.
So let's make sure that everyone understands this issue about carding, and then also the issue about profiling, and also about the issue of Form 208. Very specifically, Form 208 is the practice that has been going on for some time where some people may have experienced it. I don't know if all audience could respond in this way, but I think there are some people in this room who may have experienced this where you are profiled, you are identified, you are stopped, you are questioned, your name is taken down, your information, and it's put into the system. So now you are now known to the police. You've done nothing wrong, you were just asked questions. The issue with regards to carding is a little bit different in that it is addressing now the responsibility of the police identifying what you look like. Because what was happening before were people that looked like you and me were unnecessarily stopped too often and being harassed, as many perceived to be. With regards to the carding issue, and I do have some problems with it, but it works to the benefit of acknowledging what has been taking place, because continually we have said this is what's happening, and yet we're excluded from that conversation of being recognized that it is happening. It's not just a figment of our imagination. The carding part identifies the responsibility of the police, if they do it, to put down who they now question. And that's why you've seen the rise, because it shows exactly that unproportionately black males are being stopped by the police unnecessarily. And women too. But it's the proportion is larger to black males. So, in one sense, I'm against the idea of being harassed and stopped unnecessarily. But I am for recording the numbers of stops because it holds the police accountable for their actions.
Thank you. Dewitt Lee, please.
Thank you. Well, carding, in fact, is an experiment that I think was rolled out without truly considering the repercussions. It was handed over to the police force. There was promotions tied to it. There was all kind of different incentives for police officers to actually card. And until it was removed, and stripped from them, the number didn't settle down. So I believe they say 75%. It went from 9,700 occurrences roughly in 1 month, all the way down to basically 1,100 occurrences once that promotion incentive was taken away from it. So it was rolled out without truly considering the repercussions of the community, and I believe that the people deserve an apology. I think that people deserve they need to be recognized that, you know what, too many lives were impacted, too many community relationships between good police officers and citizens of that community that it polices has been stressed and strained because of a few police officers who wanted to take advantage of a new promotional tool. So do I support carding? Well, in fact, carding does provide an evidence of an occurrence. And it is clear that we need to have as many accountable and transparency sort of incentives and regiments inside the way the police police us. So I have to support it because it is to keep us safe, all right? But we need to ensure, brother, listen, we need to make sure that it is handled with care. Now I have to tell you, I've attended the police. I've attended the police board meetings, and the police board has been very aggressive in accepting the information and making a decision that this is unacceptable. Now, how they actually enforce this ruling that is now unacceptable to unfairly card someone is my question, and that's where I want to hold them to the gun and hold them accountable because.
Thank you, Dewitt Lee.
Talking too soon.
We give our police service a very difficult job to do, and they have to have some of the tools to do that job. So I would answer the question by saying, no, I wouldn't abolish it, but I would continue to reform it, and I would monitor the results very, very closely, because it's the results that we were just hearing referred to that have allowed us to have this discussion. Now, my views on this have been quite well known as a broadcaster, and it starts back with things like, I'm uncomfortable with the notion that they can monitor Wi-Fi, people using Wi-Fi at the airport, that some of the authorities in Ottawa can do that kind of thing. And I'm uncomfortable with the notion that somebody walking down the street, minding their own business in Toronto, can be stopped randomly and questioned. I sort of think people came to this country and people like living here and value our Canadian citizenship because they think it's a country where that doesn't happen to you. So I would say the reason I think some kind of a recording of information should be allowed to continue and not use the word abolition is because I think if there's recent crime that's taken place right around the corner, I use the example sometimes of a bank alarm is going off and somebody's running down the street, yes, the police should be able to stop that person and ask them questions about the bank alarm, do you know anything about it, and so on. Or, I understand that, you and I agree, sir. You and I agree, sir. I think if there's that recent criminal activity in a nearby area, or if there are people who are behaving suspiciously, the police should have the right and they have the responsibility to stop and talk to those people. But I think that no citizen, regardless of their neighborhood, regardless of their skin color, or regardless of any other characteristic, who are just going about their business, should be subject, in our city or in our country for that matter, to being stopped and questioned and having information recorded. And so as a result, I can't say that I agree with the abolition of people being stopped. You call it carding, it's become a word now that's become negative because of the practice that was referred to. But I think the notion the police should be able to and have to sometimes stop people and ask them questions is something that should apply in certain circumstances, but we should continue to reform it because the reforms thus far have proven to be inadequate in terms of some of the things we've heard talked about today, and that we should continue to monitor those results very, very carefully. And I don't endorse racial profiling in any capacity whatsoever.
Thank you very much. I was so troubled by what I was hearing about it early on in the campaign that I took the opportunity to attend both the Police Services Board meeting on the issue, as well as some advocacy groups had seminars afterwards. I'll tell you, I remain troubled by the whole concept. While I appreciate what the Police Services Board has done, I want to tell you that this, I think, is added evidence for why we need an entire review of policing in our city.
That's right.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's not been done for a generation. And this is not to put down those men and women who have dedicated and risked their lives for public service and public safety. What that is, though, is to reflect that we have not changed the way we've looked at policing for over 25 years. Our expectations have changed, our demographics have changed, technology has changed, budgets have changed, everything has changed. The way we have our policing has not changed. And what that means is that not only are there issues such as what we're seeing today that causes great distress, but worse than that, we have questions about whether or not we're spending so much money we could put money from these types of programs into other programs that actually will help communities. And so we have the choice of dollars and cents. But even more than that, it reflects society, it reflects what we want our policing and how we want our cities safe. So this is part of a bigger discussion. It's part of a discussion of how we want policing done in the city and how we want to keep ourselves safe. So ladies and gentlemen, my take on this is that it's something that needs to be put as part of an overall review. It causes distress, let's recognize it, but let's put it within an overall review of policing.
Thank you, Olivia Chow.
As your mayor, I'll sit on the police board and stop racial profiling. We must stop this practice of carding. Because you know who gets carded? It's black folks and people with brown skin. That's who gets carded. That's who gets racial profiled. I've talked to young men and women. Let me tell you, it is humiliating. You go out to just go and get some groceries, go and meet friends. You get stopped. You get stopped when you're going out. You get stopped coming back. You get stopped when you're visiting friends. You get stopped just standing there. You just get stopped over and over and over again. You know, that is demoralizing. It makes people angry. It makes young people feel alienated. Not just young people, by the way, it feels alienated. They don't feel like they're part of the community. They feel like, what they've done wrong? They have not done anything wrong. Why should they be racial profiled? Why should they be stopped? For no good reason. They're not criminals. Now, if you think that person is a criminal or is doing something wrong, of course, right? Go and question and charge. But don't do the racial profiling. The figures is clear. Enough studies, enough reports. We've seen lots of them, and it's not working. We know that. Okay? So we need to change. I have a long history of making sure that there's no discrimination in the police and working hard for police accountability. That's a long track record of that, which is why the lead group that have been pushing an end to carding, the law union team, whether it's Mr. Howard Morton or Paul Copeland and others, have been working with me and actually saying, support me and endorse me so that we can work together to end racial profiling in the police.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is a perfect example why you have to have someone who has experience at City Hall. Number one.